Do you think appointing Boris Johnson as Foreign Secretary is an accident waiting to happen?
Not necessarily, and I think people should be very careful, both in this country and abroad, not to rush to judgment. I think this is actually a bold appointment. It's an imaginative appointment. It's a risky appointment, but it could well prove to be just what our foreign policy needs at this historic moment in our country's history.
Why do you say that?
Because I think there needs to be now a major retooling of our foreign policy, which flows from the referendum result and the fact that Brexit means Brexit. We need now to send, how can I put it, a shot of adrenaline through our diplomatic system so we raise our game all round the world. And I think Boris Johnson is capable of doing precisely that.
He is a man, though, who caused a diplomatic incident on a visit to the Middle East, who was critical of Barack Obama's parentage after Barack Obama backed the Remain side in the referendum campaign, and has a long history of gaffes domestically as well.
Yeah, well, everybody now is compiling their book of Boris's gaffes. Every news organisation, probably every embassy here in London. I know that there is a cable doing the rounds in the United States going back to 2008, emanating from the US embassy here, listing all his gaffes. And he and the Foreign Office are going to have to deal with this. And the way you deal with these past gaffes is, how would I put it? By your works shall ye be known. And if he proves to be an effective Foreign Secretary, if he does the job well, what has happened in the past will soon be forgotten. And I think that is the way he has to approach the job, and that is the way the Foreign Office has to deal with it.
But I mean, the job of Foreign Secretary basically being a sort of morale booster and a glorified after-dinner speaker, or does Mr. Johnson have perhaps some hidden depths?
Well, I think Mr. Johnson does have hidden depths. What he has to do is to bring these to the job at hand. He needs to surround himself with a highly hard-nosed, hard-headed, experienced team of junior ministers and officials and really do the business of foreign policy without, at the same time, losing that exuberance and élan which has made him such a universal figure. There's a big, big diplomatic job to be done. David Davis is doing the Brexit stuff, hacking through our entanglements with the European Union. But all round the world, people want to know, are we going to turn into a crabbed little inward-looking island off the northwest coast of the European continent, or are we going to go out there and do things in the world? And I think that Boris, with a bit of luck and a bit of judgment, will be a very good spokesman for that vocation.
I mean, it's not just David Davis doing the Brexit negotiations, it's also Dr. Liam Fox, experienced cabinet minister, doing this international trade job. So does that really leave much for the Foreign Secretary to do other than go to summits?
Well, it leaves an enormous amount for the Foreign Secretary to do. Foreign policy is not just trade. We concentrate enormously nowadays on trade in our overseas relations, and rightly so. So what we will want to see develop under this new May administration is a proper coordination between Liam Fox doing the international business, Boris Johnson doing the diplomacy, and there is plenty of work for diplomats, Adam, in today's world, and then David Davis doing the Brexit side. Now, you may say, well, the EU, and detaching ourselves from it, excuse me, should be a major part of our foreign policy. But the EU has now become more a domestic political issue than one of foreign policy. So there will be coordination between the Foreign Office and the Brexit Department, as with Liam Fox's, and that is the way it should be.
But it's also going to cause quite a lot of tension in government, isn't it? Because we know that the three of them, although they were all Brexiteers, had a very different interpretation, each one, of what Brexit should mean.
Well, they're going to need to get their act together, aren't they? I don't think Mrs. May is going to be terribly tolerant of that kind of turf fighting, preening, or prima donnaing, if there's such a verb exists, if that were to happen. So I think Downing Street is going to have a big whip and they're going to crack it as and when is necessary. My advice to Mr. Johnson, Mr. Davis, Mr. Fox is watch it. Make sure you pull together. Don't indulge in the kind of stuff that may have divided you in the past, because this is a government and an administration that's not going to be tolerant of that.
You, of course, after a long career as a diplomat, have many contacts around the world. What are they saying to you about what's going on? Is it a repeat of what one woman said, an Afghan-born American taxi driver said to her,
go by.
Your country's in a bit of a mess. Is that what your foreign contacts are saying?
I mean, I've had a whole bunch of emails this morning saying, what on earth is going on in London? I mean, people are gobsmacked by this appointment, and they have a caricature view of Boris Johnson, which of course to a degree he's cultivated himself. So people are very, very surprised, very astonished, and it is going to be a hill for Mr. Johnson to climb to show that he is a serious Foreign Secretary. That is one of his challenges.
But you would say, finally, you think he can meet that challenge?
I think he can meet this challenge, and I think that the faith that Theresa May has put in him to do this thing is well placed. It is not without risks. There may be some mishaps. We can't exclude this. But if Boris Johnson can realize his potential, and I think this is the core of what I'm saying. If he can realize his potential, he will send that shot of adrenaline through the Foreign Office, through our diplomacy, which is so necessary right now in the world of post-referendum and Brexit negotiations.